Hey, it's Jeff. Welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be showing you my beautiful peperomia quadrangularis, or otherwise known as the peperomia angulata or the peperomia beetle. I've had mine now for, I think, probably about a year and a half. I bought it off a good plant friend of mine. She was selling hers and I was searching out for this specific one, so I bought it off her, and it's been doing really well in the conditions that I've been providing it. So I'll share how I care for it, how to propagate it, that sort of thing. I like to think they're easy to care for plants, but I think where a lot of people struggle is with the watering. So of course we'll be talking about that. Don't really hear much about peperomias anymore, so I hope people are still collecting them. They're really gorgeous plants, but like I said, knowing basically how to water it, I think, is key to these plants. And all peperomias are not treated the same, so I'll be talking about this one specifically today. So let's get into it. One of the cool things about this plant, and the reason why it's named quadrangularis, is it does not have a round stem. It's actually a square stem, and I'll see if I can zoom in here just so you can see the ridges along the stem here. So it's a square stem, which is pretty peculiar about this one. And then the foliage is just absolutely gorgeous. There is another variety of peperomia. It's called tetragona. It has very similar shaped and very similar pattern on the leaves, but I think the main difference is the tetragona has a little bit more of a wider broad-shaped leaf. This one is a little bit more narrower, with a pointy end, and the color of the venation is more of a lime green with the peperomia beetle here, whereas the tetragona I think has more of like a silver stripe. But these leaves are just absolutely stunning. I don't know why it's called peperomia beetle, but in my opinion, these look like little kind of narrow-shaped watermelons. So this is more of a peperomia watermelon than the actual peperomia watermelon plant, if you've ever seen one. I think it's the color, like the lime green and the dark green, that just reminds me of a watermelon. Okay, let's get into the care. For the most part, peperomias require bright indirect light. Right now I have this one on my plant shelf. It's on a west-facing wall. It's about 2 feet back from my south-facing window. It doesn't get any direct sunlight in the summer, but in the winter, when the sun is lower in the sky, it will get some direct sunlight. But the winter sun is much less harsh. Less harsh? Yeah, it's much less harsh than the summer sun. I think peperomias would be perfect for an east-facing window. That way you get a lot of bright morning light. And again, that direct sunlight in the morning in an east-facing window should not burn the leaves. Never had any issues with my peperomia hope, which is in that window. But if it does get a lot of like direct sunlight from a south-facing window or even a west-facing window, it'll probably burn the leaves. So an east-facing window or pulled back from a south or west-facing window would be sufficient. Just no direct sunlight. Okay, now for watering, and I'll show you my little secret here, but it actually took me quite a while to figure out how to water peperomias, as when I watered them, I found that they would develop some stem rot quite easily, and they would die off pretty fast. So I started to actually bottom water these, and I've never had an issue after that. So I'll fill up the saucer. I'll do it right now. Just move that over, and all I do is fill up the bottom of the saucer, just like that, and let the soil and pot soak up that water, and it's actually going pretty fast. But that's how I water all of my peperomias. If you look in the pot here, you'll see that they have typically soft, very fleshy stems. They're very, very susceptible to overwatering and rotting. Not only root rot, but you'll get stem rot. You'll notice the portion closest to the soil will get a little bit black, and the stem will completely rot off. So that's how whoa, look at that. It's already soaked up that water. That's crazy. That was like 15 seconds. Okay, so this one definitely needed some water. This one in particular, I primarily water from the top. I find this one doesn't have that issue of stem rot like some of the other more delicate peperomias. This one, the leaves are a bit more thicker, so this is more of like a succulent type peperomia. Some peperomias out there, they have very thin leaves. Those are a little bit more delicate when it comes to watering. I would suggest bottom watering all your peperomias, and I'm gonna give it some more. Whoops, okay, I'm making a mess here. Gotta get my towel. I probably should have done this with a tripod. I'll probably do it like 2 or 3 times. It's not a large pot, and they don't need a ton of water. You don't want it to get to the point where the top of the soil reaches saturation as well. So I'll probably only do it once or twice and then just feel the weight of the pot. I can already feel that it's a little bit heavier, so I don't think I'm going to give it another one. I'm just going to let this water continue to, or finish soaking up, and then that's how I water my peperomias. You can also, if you don't want to make a complete mess like I just did, you can also put it in a Tupperware container. So place the plant in the Tupperware and then just fill the container up to a certain level and let it soak for like 10, 15, 20 minutes until, again, just paying attention to the weight of the pot. You don't want the top of the soil to get saturated because you've basically it's no different than watering from the top. You're keeping the top of the soil quite wet. I got a dead leaf in here. Okay, I did add some fertilizer in the container of water. I just use Dynagrow Foliage Pro 936. I don't fertilize these very often, so maybe like once a month through the growing season of spring and summer, but in the winter I won't give it any fertilizer, and then obviously you just slow down your watering as the plant is not actively growing as much as it does in the summer. You can see it's getting a bunch of new leaves, a bunch of new stems just popping up. So if you notice that your plant is growing in the winter, then continue to water like you normally would. And if you want to fertilize, I would cut it at least in half and then continue to give it some fertilizer if it's still growing in the winter months. But that's how I water it. This is how I fertilize, and so far it's done really good for me. You can see how healthy these leaves and stems are. Just it's such a gorgeous, luscious looking plant. I just can't get over these leaves. The type of soil and even the pot is almost as important as knowing how to water this plant. Peperomias, they have a very small, shallow root system, and they don't like to sit in any soggy soil. I only use like a succulent or cactus soil, or even like a tropical plant mix with a lot of perlite mixed into it, just so it doesn't retain that moisture for too long. They like to be watered, but they don't like to be sitting in soggy, moist soil for very long. Otherwise, you'll quickly notice that they'll develop either root rot or stem rot. I like to use terracotta for my peperomias as well. Terracotta is very porous. It absorbs the soil moisture lower in the pot and it evaporates it out. It's just another way to control soil moisture levels lower in the pot. And of course, you don't need a large pot for these peperomias since they have a smaller root system. If you put it in too large of a pot, there's way too much soil that will just soak up that moisture, and the plant won't be able to utilize that moisture fast enough or even evaporate fast enough, leading to that stem and root rot again. A lot of information online will tell you that this specific peperomia needs higher humidity, so like 60% or so. I have this upstairs and it's pretty dry here in Canada, so my humidity levels upstairs can range anywhere from like 30 to 60%, or sometimes even higher in the summer. But for the most part, this for me does really well in regular humidity, no issues, but yeah, I just thought I'd mention that quickly. Last thing I'm going to talk about is propagating, and in my opinion, peperomias are probably one of the more easier plants to propagate. You can do it by leaf or stem cutting. I read a little while ago that not only are these good trailing plants, but these can actually be used as ground cover for like little terrariums. So I'm going to actually try that today with my jewel orchid terrarium. I'm going to take a cutting and place it just in the soil and see if it eventually just gets a nice ground cover. So basically you just want to find a section of the stem. Let's see where a good one is. I'm going to take from maybe this one right here. I'm just going to chop this stem right off of the main stem. It looks like it's branched off from a node. So I'm just going to take a small little cutting for now that looks like this. This is the cut portion. Here are the leaves, and here's this portion of the stem where it continues to grow. So all I'm going to do is cut off the two lower leaves, making sure you cut as close to the stem as possible. That way you have a small little section. I don't know if you can see it. There's a small little section of the petiole still on the leaf. That is what you'll need to propagate it in soil. So I'm just going to remove both of these leaves off of the stem like that so I can propagate those. And then I'm going to stick this section right in the jewel orchidarium and see if that grows in the soil. I'm going to place this node underneath the soil, and then I'll have these leaves just sticking out of the soil here. So that's pretty much it. That's really easy. I've only, I'm just trying to think if I've done water propagation. I think I have, but you can propagate this directly in soil, and you can do it in water as well. Just give it some time. With these leaves, you will get new growth popping out from the end of the stem. So you'll get an entirely new stem popping out, and you'll get a new plant just from these leaves. So I'll take these three stem cutting and the 2 leaves, and I'll place them in my jewel orchidarium. Okay, I just placed the end of the cutting underneath the soil and then I put the 2 little leaves in my terrarium, just down there. So I'm hoping that eventually this will kind of fill out and just kind of like creep along the bottom of the terrarium. I think everything will look really good once this peperomia starts to grow. And it will be getting higher humidity because I do close the top. Let's get this guy in here. He's starting to outgrow the terrarium, so that's the trick with these Pictum tricolors, is they like higher humidity as well. So I stuck it in the orchid terrarium, and yeah, I'll provide some updates with how the propagations are doing in the terrarium. So I think that's going to be pretty much it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks again for all the support. Thanks for watching my videos. Take care, everyone. Bye.